Hello, welcome to the call of the technical working group for OpenActive, looking at the membership proposal. This is Thursday, 27th of January, 2022. We'll be today focusing on a couple of worked examples in connection with the on behalf of booking solutions identified in the last call as potentially viable. So we'll be revisiting little Johnny and his swimming lesson as has become sort of a ritual in the call. However, before we jump into that, I'll just go around and call on people in the order in which you appear on my screen to introduce themselves. Phil, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sorry, was that me?
That was you, yep.
Yeah, sorry, it rustled at that point. Yeah, Phil Allen, Senior Developer for Gladstone.
Thank you, Phil. Debbie.
Debbie Giordano, everyone active.
So I'm specializing in catching people out. Nathan.
Nathan Salter, I'm the lead developer at Playfinder and BookTech.
And Andrew.
Andrew Marshall, Principal Architect at Gladstone.
Matt.
Matt Davies, Sports League and Venue Management Software.
Simon.
Simon Parr, Development Manager for Gladstone.
Nick.
Hello, Nick Evans, I'm in.
And finally, Stephen.
Stephen Winfield, GLL.
Okay, thank you very much for introducing yourselves. I'm Timothy Hill of the Open Data Institute. And as I said, we will be looking at just a couple of worked examples, making sure that we've picked all the details out of the proposals identified in the last call for dependent booking on behalf of booking. So I'll just start sharing my screen here. Let's see. Now, where is the, there we go. Okay, so also excitingly, this might well be the final call, or at any rate, the penultimate call in the membership proposal discussion. We might have to regroup to review the completed document, make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, but hopefully, and I'm now cursing myself for saying it, we'll be able to work through these issues and agree that this is a viable way forward for us. So just as a quick refresher, the last couple of calls have really been focused on behalf of bookings, as Nick has been phrasing it in the issue linked there, for which the most common use case is dependent bookings, where you'll typically have a parent or guardian booking on behalf of a child. And we've gone through a lot of alternatives for how to look at this. None of them have proved entirely satisfactory, but we do seem to have landed on a couple of quite simplifying approaches that look like they're going to be able to deliver for us. So the recommendations, which were broadly accepted in the last call, were to handle dependent accounts using the OpenID Connect flow. And with the notion that the broker has got full authority to make bookings. So it's the broker is leading that process there. On previous calls, we have tended to focus in particular on little Johnny, who's been most problematically, I think, or I guess it's also the use case that's the most concrete, because this is an actual requirement of MCR Active, I believe. This is little Johnny going swimming free of charge. So with the notion that somebody can book little Johnny into a swimming class for which there's no payment required, and little Johnny then attends either with or without accompaniment by an adult. Just to flesh things out and kick the tires a little bit, I've also suggested a couple of additional scenarios to consider in more detail. So supposing that he's associated with a parent or with a guardian who is no longer making bookings or should not be able to make bookings on his behalf, And then I threw in little Janie going to judo and paying a fee to do so on the parental or guardian account. And what happens if that account is barred from making bookings for whatever reason. So we can examine those in connection to the solutions identified last time, and hopefully they go the distance, but we shall see. And I think we've already looked a bit at how we would see this working in previous calls. But I'll hand over to Nick at this point to MC Little Johnny going to swimming.
Okay, that's the request. Okay.
Yeah.
MC Little Johnny going swimming. Right. I guess where are we starting from? And maybe this is, I don't know if there's a, I don't know, Matt raised this last time. So are we starting from the beginning of Little Johnny doesn't exist anywhere?
I think we have to start from a blank slate. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So Little Johnny, I guess, resides in the Manchester area with somebody legally appointed to his care.
Sure. Okay. Right. So if we scroll down a little bit onto this in this part of the thing, yeah. Great. So okay. So first of all, Little Johnny, I guess we'll have to take a specific broker and assume that that works in a certain way for this to make sense. But let's say MCR active for the sake of an example, only an illustrative example, of course. So Little Johnny would register themselves in MCR active. Now it might be because or we've already discussed previously the age restrictions. It might be that Little Johnny tries to register himself first of all, if he's 8 years old, 7 years old. 7 years old might be trying to register himself first of all, and it might find that when he tries to do that in MCR active, it says you can't. You need to register as a part of a family, and so Little Johnny comes back with his dad, let's say, or mum, let's say, Jane, to register. So then mum goes into the account, creates herself in MCR, creates Little Johnny in MCR in this example. In this example, neither of them have ever seen everyone active before. So they'll put the information into MCR. And then the flow at the top, if you go to the document, the proposal document, and just go to the top screenshot in section 2, I think it is. Yeah. So this is when mum would go to link her account to. So if you go down a little bit further to the screenshot. Yeah, that's the one. Oh, sorry, the one after that. Oh no, sorry, that was the one. That was the one. There's got the create button on it. Right. So Little Johnny, Jane, the mum, goes to create her account. So she'll jump out of MCR. She'll jump into this screen, which is already pre-populated with her email address for MCR, and she'll have a quick read of it and tick the "I have read the health questionnaire" and click the create button. At which point, in the background, there's an initialize call that's being made, which is specified further in the appendix of this document. So the initialize call is made, and that is when that's what sets that information, all the relevant details it says there in that account from the MCR account. So then Jane's got an account. Brilliant. Also sets a cookie so Jane stays logged into that account. She jumps back to the MCR portal, and if you go back to that other screen where we were, yeah, she jumps back to the MCR portal there on the left-hand side. She might see something a little bit like this, and she goes down to Little Johnny. She's already put the details in for Little Johnny into MCR, and she clicks on link there. and she then jumps the middle screen because she's got a cookie set, she's already logged in, and she doesn't see anything in this list apart from her own name and create and link. And so she clicks on the create new account button because little Johnny doesn't exist in that list yet. And then you scroll down a little bit, she sees the left-hand screen with her own email address in there, assuming this is, for example, for an account, a system that requires email addresses, where it says, this will create an account for little Johnny within the account for Jane Smith, her own name, using this email address. And she then ticks the box to say she's read the questionnaire again, and clicks the create account button. And then if you go back up to then she goes back to this screen where it shows that the account's been linked, and she can proceed to make bookings from that point, using little Johnny and herself to book them both in for something, and that call would be made from her API key if she was booking for Johnny, from her auth token, and would include the ID which the broker will have received from that second linking there from little Johnny, will include the ID in that call as well. So that then means that there's a call which includes both things, and then booking can be made for little Johnny and receive the price little Johnny is due. Obviously in the background as well, when those links occurred, the system could have set entitlements both for little Johnny and for Jane. So there might well be entitlements on there that apply those discounts. And then subsequently to that, just for the complete picture, it might be that they go individually, little Johnny and or Jane sign up for a proper paid monthly membership at Everyone Active. They might do that through the Everyone Active website. They'll be prompted to log in. They'll enter their email address. It will recognize them. They might have to reset their password to go through the Everyone Active, for example, process to finish that login, purchase their membership, but nonetheless, it will recognize the details for both of those. And then when they come back to this screen, so we'll come back to MCR, any purchases made will reflect the price of that membership for both little Johnny and for Jane.
Okay, so reflections, comments, questions from others on the call?
Seems logical.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me.
Is there any appetite to actually be looking at the API calls?
Yeah, I was about to say, I guess we don't have to delve into them in full detail, but are they listed in the appendix, and if so, which ones are being used here?
Yeah, we can jump up. So if you scroll up a little bit to a little bit further up, there you go. There's the API calls appendix D. So the calls that are being used in what I just described there. So we can replay that scenario again, but with the API calls used. Is that useful? Jumping around those.
Yeah, that'd be useful, I think.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stick the link to this document in the chat as well, in case that would be helpful for people. Okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Nick, please do take it away. I will do my best to hop around between headings here.
Yeah. It should be. Can you drag that little thing on the left, that navigation out, Tim, so we can see the full? No, that would be wishful thinking, wouldn't it? Oh well. Well, they are all listed there, although you can't see the whole thing. So we'll try our best. Oh, you can see on the mouse over there. So that's something. So back to the beginning of the journey again. Following it through, when Jane first goes to the MCR thing and she enters her email address, the call that we made is the one in front of us here, which is the check of her email address, and it will return 0 because she doesn't have an account. And so she'll then, that's why it's prompting her to create rather than going through a link flow at that point. This is a previous discussion, but yeah, so that's what would happen there. The next thing that would happen is she'd obviously go through the authorization code flow, or take the authorized call. That's OAuth stuff. We'll come back again, and then when to create the account, if you go down to the initialize call, oops, D3, I believe.
Something
one
up
below
there.
that, D4 maybe.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So the initialize call would be made, and the initialize call is the call that adds the relevant details to the account. So we did agree in a previous call that this would not be a partial update, but would be a full update. So that's obviously going to be taken into account here.
Nick, just one question. In these two calls, the authorization, it talks about the bearer token there.
Yeah.
That is the broker having authenticated against the booking system, is that right?
The OAuth flow there is broker to booking system, and the customer has entered their details.
But the customer doesn't have an account yet. So what is it? The
So,
authentication?
yeah, great point. So, and more jumping around for Tim, unfortunately. Tim, if you scroll up to section 2 again, and just for clarity, click on that there. I'm going to memorize all these numbers as we go. So this flow here, when the user clicks create, that's before any calls that can happen apart from the email address check, which is done with client credentials. Everything else requires authorization code flow credentials. So if you scroll up, sorry, to that little box there for illustration. So when you hit create here, that is creating the user just with an email address, nothing else, just an empty vessel of a potential thing that can become an account. And when you click create, that creates the account, basic account with email address only, and the authorization tokens are allocated and granted to that email address, to the account rather, that's been created behind the scenes. So by the time then you take that auth token and you call the initialize call with all the details, and that's what you're kind of inflating or hydrating, whatever metaphor you want to use, the account with the customer details.
So if Tim, sorry, if you could go back to the get customer, basically the first one where we look up the email address.
Yes.
So the authorization in that case is a bearer token obtained for the broker, not for the customer, right?
That's right. So the client credentials flow is the broker. Yeah, it doesn't require customer details for client credentials flow. Okay,
and then subsequent one, same, which is where we initialize.
If you go D2, if you go down to the thing, yeah, you'll see, oops, yeah, scroll down slightly to the actual call, and you can see the header, the token there in use is a bearer token obtained by the authorization code flow. So the initialize call requires the authorization code flow token, which you've got when you press the create button, when the user clicked that create button, and that returned the token to the broker.
So I'm not understanding it properly, I don't think, and it might not be. That might not be a problem. Say.
Well, so I'll try and be a bit clearer. So the when you create the account is created in a dummy-like state, and it's before it's initialized. But the dummy.
So when you make that call though, or that call that has nothing to do with the broker, I guess is what you're saying is we've gone off now to the booking system site where all of that stuff happens. Is that right?
The authorization code flow, happens on the booking system site. When they click create, the OAuth flow returns the token to the broker. So the broker has the token. So it basically, the broker hands off control to the booking system. Booking system does that screen that we were displaying just a minute ago. When the user clicks create, the broker the control is handed back to the broker. Mm-hmm. And with the control being handed back, it comes with tokens.
Right, got it. Okay. It's it might be useful to, and it might already be the case. I just haven't, because I like making it more clear as to which authorization token, because there is a different. at the beginning, we're using the broker having authorized or authenticated itself to the booking system, and then we switch to the actual customer having given an OAuth flow. And like I say, it might be that this wording does already describe that properly, in which case, excellent. If not, it might be worth making that clearer, so that you don't end up as a developer trying to use some credentials. You go, why is this not bloody working? And it's because you're using the broker credential when you should be using the OAuth credentials you got back from the flow, etc.
That sounds like a great idea. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I can add this as an appendix, in fact. We can add it as an appendix.
Yeah, I feel like the proposal document is kind of morphing into a guidance document, and actually that's quite useful. So
yeah. So I'll go ahead and comment on that. Shall we? What's the best next thing to do?
So I guess we've initialized the parent account at this point.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so initialize the parent account. That's so that we've got the details. We can then do things after we've initialized successfully. Now this is the point to point out where, as mentioned last time, if there's a duplication issue, that's where you'll get the error. So that's now specified in the document. So that will go back to the user. And they can deal with that how they will. So, and you can see that actually it's just down there. If you scroll down, Tim, a little, there you go, the pink one.
Right, okay.
Added this after the last call. Custom account duplicate detected error. Hopefully quite self-explanatory. That is what comes back if there's a duplicate. Obviously, it's an optional to implement because that's not something that every booking system will do, that check. But if there is indeed checks in the booking system that double check for that kind of thing, that's where the error comes back. So then the customer can be clearly instructed to try again. Well, it's clearly it's a duplicate situation, so that the note to the customer is then hopefully obvious from there. However, it's decided to be described by the broker, so they can just try again with some different details or log in as the options they'll have. If they just go back to that flow, if you go back to the top box again, Tim, sorry.
We're in section 2 there.
Yeah, 2, yeah. So just, yeah, you can see at the bottom it says already have an Everyone Active account. So that's what they do. They'd go back in, they click that this time, and they'd actually use the account because they've been told to do so. So that would be the idea there. So if you go back to wherever we were, initialize, yeah. So assuming that's been created successfully, then the next thing is that you can do what you want with that account because you've got it. You know, the broker can do whatever it needs. So it might, for example, if you put your mouse over the D's again on the left.
Can I just pause you for just one moment? So what's the exact difference that's being captured between 4 and 5 here? There's a 409 error in both cases. Why do we have 2 points addressing this exactly?
Oh, sorry, they're 409 errors, but they're different errors that come out of the 409. As in, the 409 status code is being used to describe 2 different errors, which are
okay.
Already
initial. Right. How does one distinguish between those 2?
The response would have the error in it. The error. If you scroll down, it should show you.
Oh, I guess what I mean is,
so
the former is if you've already started this process and then a second request is issued. Is that what that 4 is recognizing?
Sorry, if you scroll up again, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm not being very clear. I just don't understand what the difference is. Under what circumstances an account initialized but not a duplicate?
So a customer account already initialized is simply because the call's been made already. That's a kind of system.
Well, I guess it's like a retry kind of problem.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The person who's coding on the broker side is trying to initialize something that's been initialized before. They shouldn't do that. The reason the initialize call is separate from the update call is specifically for this reason, because if you're making an initialize call, you're doing a kind of overwrite everything because I know best call, which that shouldn't ever happen for example, if you link a new account, if you link an existing account that's got stuff in it, you don't want to be calling initialize on it because you'll just blitz the existing account with whatever you think the world looks like. So that's why the update call, which is the one below, is the one to use for making updates and changes to the account, whereas the initialize call is it's entirely for the situation where you've just created it and before that account can be used. So if you try and do anything else to the account before it's been initialized, you'll get an error. So there's an initialization error specified on the other endpoints. So account not initialized error. So you have to initialize it, then you can do stuff. And you can imagine that a broker coding this will always initialize immediately when they get the control back. If it's not initialized, it's because the broker's code is broken somehow, rather than because of any user error.
Okay, with you now. Thank you. Sorry, you were saying.
That's nice. What was I saying?
Having thrown you off. So you can now do anything you like with the account now that it's been initialized and populated.
That's right. Yeah. So if you go over the 5 on the left, I think it is. There you go. You could set a barcode feasibly at this point for the adult, the junior, or it was the adult. We're still at the Jane stage, aren't we? And if you go down to D7, you could also set a entitlement. So you can set that account up. So that what you're left with at this stage then is a fully configured account for Jane. She could just crack on and use it. You know, she logged into Everyone Active, she'd get the relevant entitlement stuff applied. She'd also get it through making bookings direct. Sorry, bookings through the MCR portal.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions at this point from others on the call? No? Okay, great. Sorry, carry on.
Okay, no worries. So okay, perfect. So that's the flow, and the great thing about the way that we've decided to approach the dependent account situation is that you'll notice that we're going to do exactly the same thing again now in a second. So there's no difference from the broker or the booking system's perspective when the dependent account is connected, other than how they're connected. Once they're connected, everything is the same. So, but just to illustrate that point, if we jump to the GitHub issue, so that is, yeah, so if we go through again, so this would be, where are we in the story? So Jane's connected, she's come back to the left-hand screen. She now wants to connect Johnny. She clicks on the link for Johnny, skips the middle screen because that cookie was set when she went through it. So she'd just see the screen after, and it would ask to create or link. She can't see herself, she can't see Johnny in that list. So that on the right-hand side, Johnny isn't present in that list. She would just see create and link. So she clicks create, and then if you scroll down on the previous one, Tim, yeah, and then you'll recognize the left-hand screen, looking very similar to the last time we did this with a create button and a tick box. Very similar way, the account is created in an uninitialized state for little Johnny under Jane. However, after this point, there's no way you can tell from a broker that it's actually within Jane's account. From the broker's perspective, this is just little Johnny. It doesn't really matter how it's configured within groups on the booking system side. Little Johnny exists. And so we've got little Johnny to initialize. And if we go back to the document again, and we run through this again. So, and then if we go back to D4, I think it was it initialize or 3? Yeah, 4. Now we're going to initialize again that account. So again, same exact thing. We're going to hydrate the information that we know about little Johnny, stick it in here. After which point we can then go to D5, for example, and set a barcode for the little Johnny. And in exactly the same way, we can go to D7 and set entitlements for little Johnny as well. So very nice simplicity there in terms of both sides, because once you've connected little Johnny, everything's just the same as it was. We don't need to worry about identifiers or anything being handled within those endpoints specifically for the dependent.
We personally, as in sports, would have a slight issue there because email address is a unique field. And so if we try and use Jane's email address again for Johnny, and there's no indicator to say, oh, and by the way, we're doing this because we're creating a dependent account, there wouldn't really be an easy way for us to skip that validation and leave the email address out or put it somewhere else, etc.
Yeah, an excellent point, Matt. And it's the error. The issue with this diagram is it is slightly misleading. So if you go back to the sorry, Tim, to the GitHub issue again, and I just, there is a note under this, but it's just literally that immediately under that diagram. Oops, sorry, Tim. Just go up to that diagram there. That one, yeah. And the note immediately under it should really be in the diagram. So if we scroll up so we can see both the note and the diagram together. So sorry, if you go down to,
I got you.
Yeah. So what we're saying there is that email address field, although Gladstone might well need it, as it stands, I think email address is required for that. So it sounds like that field will be in there for Gladstone. However, and Phil's nodding, so that's reassuring. However, for other booking systems, as you say, Phil, Matt, that do have that unique constraint, which absolutely very common. This email just doesn't need to be set, and therefore what you have is basically a totally anonymous at that point dummy account with credentials set in the background, and then that gets fully populated with whatever details that we have about Johnny, which may or may not include an email address at that stage.
I should have noticed that, because you're right. It's clear looking back at it. This screen is controlled by the booking system. So we have something that I know. I was doing some documentation. I was having to read some documentation in another system recently where there were these sorts of things, and very usefully, it was very clearly color coded. So like screens that were occurring in system 1 were green, screens that were occurring in system 2 were orange. And so you could very easily see, okay, that's the broker, that's a screen in the broker, and this is a screen on the booking system. So that might be something that could be applied to, if not, obviously not specs, but guidance documentation.
That's a really good idea, Matt. If you scroll up there, Tim, we did try and do this. They're white and grey.
Right. Perfect.
Definitely you missed that.
Yes, you're right. That's clearly FFF and EEE, and so I don't know why I didn't spot
that. Yeah, I don't. Sorry, was it FFF and EEE? No, I'm not.
They're like hex codes.
Hex codes for the colours.
Oh, yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes, that's right. But obviously not obvious enough to make it clear what's going on. So we could use some of the colorblind friendly colors that we have that we've got now. So that could be an option. Or just make it really clear in the bottom that there's 2 different colors that are in use. Because I guess gray is already colorblind friendly.
Okay, and then, right, so then a booking actually has to be made. Is it worth actually stepping through that process, or is that sort of, now that we've got the dependent account created, are we happy with how that all flows?
I'm happy to go through it if that's helpful. That is in another appendices. So, which appendices is the question? F. It's all in F. Yeah. So this is customer. If you go to F2, yeah. So scroll down a little bit. And we have had previous conversations a little bit further. Okay. So we have had previous conversations about this. There's some crossing out stuff going on, but we'll so good to cover it as a summary. When you use the that's a what's going on here? So can you scroll up a sec, Tim? We're looking at different things here. Where can you? If you go to the top of F2. Let's see if I can see what you're saying. Oh no, sorry, it's an error state. That's why it says it. I was like, that's going to create an error. It does. That's the example, an error example. So if you, that's the conflict error. That's why I was confused, because it's illustrating error. If you scroll down a little bit further past the pink crossed out stuff, great. Okay, so that's also an error. Sorry, keep going. There we go. This one, fine. So the crossed out stuff is an illustration. Although it needs to be improved, but the illustration here is the customer is not present. So the call is being made, the C1, C2B calls are made without the customer. And obviously it uses the authorization code flow, so we know who the customer is based on the authentication. However, the customer is not included in the request. In the response, it is populated with all the information about the customer. So there's no ambiguity about what's actually going on here. And so basically the customer, we'll talk about attendees in a sec, but the customer is specified by that approach. And then it's if you scroll down to attendees, then this is again C1, C2B, scrolling a little bit further past the blurb. Yeah, so, and the attendees are specified. So this example here, you can see that the has account, oh, sorry, if you scroll up to the top of that, there you go. So it says attendee, and then the attendee, it's got a has account. And that is a reference to the ID of the person that we're booking on behalf of. Now, that might be the person who, that could be anyone. That could be the person who's authenticated. That could be someone else. And as we discussed last time, there's a difference between the kind of errors that you get back, which we can talk about in a sec, depending on which is which. But the process from the booking system's perspective, apart from a small switch on the errors based on whether it matches the auth code or not, is the same. So if you want to make a booking for different accounts, you just stick those in, the IDs in, and then you're making it on behalf of booking for those attendees. If you want to make it for your own account, you put your own in. If you want to make a guest booking, which you can obviously as a customer account, you can just leave a normal attendee in there as a person. So that would allow you to, for example, make a booking where you've got me and 2 guests. I can put one attendee as a has account with my own ID, as that shows, and then the other 2 attendees, rather than specifying has account, would include the relevant name, whatever would be needed for an attendee. And so you've got the ability to mix and match between guests and account bookings there. And if we scroll a little bit further, just to show the error, there we go. Keep going a little bit further. This just illustrates what we talked about last time. So there's two different errors here. So I've added this in since last time on the back of the conversation we had. So the outstanding action on customer account error, I think this was Simon's point last time. So you get an outstanding action on customer account error if there's a problem with the account, debt, or whatever you have a problem with that account. If it's your own account, so the authentication matches the ID of the customer account being requested, which is obviously just is a simple check to make because you've got both of those in the context of the request. If it's equal, you can spit out the actual problem. A gym induction is required to make a booking, or there's debt on the account, or any number of outstanding actions that could be. If it's not, and therefore we might be exposing some privacy issues if we were to pass that information through to a potential person that is booking on behalf of someone else, or the bookie, the attendee, then what you get is the bottom error. So a booking could not be made on behalf of this account at this time. So a nice generic error message that doesn't give anything away to the person making the booking when they're making it on behalf of someone else, if there is an outstanding issue. Because it's got outstanding action on customer account, and because the broker has connected to both accounts and knows everything about both, if the broker then wants to inform someone, ideally the original customer, on what the problem is, they've got the information to do that. So it might well be, tell you're booking on for something with a friend, you can say, tell Sam to log in and check his outstanding issues. Sam would log in, see his outstanding actions, and realize there's a problem, fix it by clearing the debt or whatever, and then this would succeed.
Okay, so there's the errors. There's the booking response, I guess. And okay, and how is the and the barcode has already been transmitted as part of the, or it could be transmitted in the customer flow.
So there's two different barcodes. The barcode that's been set, as we talked about earlier, when the account's created or at any time, that barcode can be used to access the booking when in center. Alternatively, there's always the option for the booking system to generate a per booking barcode, which gets generated in the usual way with the actual booking itself. So you've got the either per booking barcode you can use, or you can use your member barcode if one's set.
Right. And if it was a booking based barcode, it would be returned in this response?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
Okay. And now little Johnny is free to go swimming. We're at the end of the flow. Any observations from anyone else on the call there? Any questions?
No, not particularly. I think I appreciate you putting in the error case with the issues with the account. That seems a decent solution.
Great.
Nick, so just to go back to the creation of little Johnny again, and because that flow is initiated by Jane, she's logged in and she starts all that up. That's the point at which the booking system can link those accounts however they might need to be linked within the booking system. Is that your thing? Because I'm just like, from the broker side, there's no like, oh, and by the way, you must now specifically link little Johnny to Jane. But because Jane started it, the booking system can set her as the parent of little Johnny.
Yeah, that's right. So Tim, if you bounce back to the GitHub issue, so if you scroll up there a little bit, oh, sorry, to the screenshot. So you could go down to the screenshot. Yeah. So you can see there it says on the right-hand side, choose the account belonging to little Johnny below. And then it says create new account for little Johnny, create an account. You click the link, and then so if you go to the next screen, Tim, on the issue. Yeah, this one. Yeah. And now on the left-hand side, it says, this will create a new account for little Johnny within the account of Jane Smith. And this is the gray box. So the booking system is doing this. And so the implication there is when that account is created, then if you want to go back into the booking system, that list would then have little Johnny on it. And so it isn't, so what we're doing here is not, there's no explicit synchronization between the two sides, no guarantee that those things are mapped. But in most cases, if it's a simple case, you'd expect them to end up looking aligned on both sides, which is convenient for the user and and doesn't create all the massive complexity we previously covered.
Yeah, and also caters for booking systems that may not even necessarily have the ability to link accounts together. So yeah, that's good.
Yes, that's right.
Cool.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Any questions from anyone else on the call?
Sorry,
Okay,
I'll go for another one. I'll just play devil's advocate. So back to swimming. The barcode that little Johnny has been allocated presumably will be a virtual one or some such at this point. Like it's been the broker that's allocated them that barcode. Is that right? But then when they walk into the center, I appreciate there's been lots of discussions about this, like, oh, the reader won't be able to read this, or how's it going. But that's the kind of thoughts here.
So we're recapping the barcode model. This is predicated on the idea that there could be a physical card or virtual card that exists on the broker side. and that physical card that needs to be then kind of assigned
Posted out to them or something.
Well, yeah. So it will be posted to them. They might well have it in their wallet or whatever when they're using the system. So the idea there is that that's where we set the barcode from the broker on the basis that broker has this barcode. You might remember that when we set that barcode, the authority for that namespace is owned by the broker. So if that physical card has a conflict because you've logged in as Johnny by accident, you realized you've logged out and logged in again or whatever it is, then it overwrites that. So it's easy to make sure that the physical card that's in the wallet doesn't need to be reposted because of some system error. It's able to be associated. And that also could be a virtual card in the same way.
And then the fact that Johnny is entitled to turn up and use that barcode to gain access to free swimming lessons is done by making subsequent posts to the entitlements endpoint after having created little Johnny. Am I understanding that correctly?
Turn up to, sorry, when you say turn up, oh yes, yes, sorry, turn up for free swimming, exactly,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
There'll be a free swimming entitlement that gets
Right.
set.
Yeah.
That's it, exactly, and that will be, the type entitlement may well be called free swimming or, you know, junior free swimming or something useful, and could have an associated description with it, which the broker can configure.
Cool. I think Johnny's in the pool. You know, there's nothing stopping him now.
Took him a month to get there, but he's
Hope he enjoys swimming. We wanted to become an Olympic athlete with the effort that's gone in to get Johnny in that pool.
Okay, I mean, I think that covers it. I mean, we've already canvassed, I suppose unlinking accounts, but in that case, I suppose that's sort of a broker responsibility ultimately.
Yeah, so the broker can unlink accounts. The broker can unlink accounts, and that's part of this proposal. So there's well, they can already just forget the API key, and that's effectively unlink them. Then part of that proposal is actually that we add not add, but ensure the support of the standard disconnect endpoint, which OpenID Connect has. So you just make a call to that endpoint, and then it just forgets the token from the booking system side. Slightly more secure version of the same thing.
Okay, great. And actually, we've already canvassed scenario B. I mean, so the only change there would be that there was a fee transmitted in the order item, and obviously there'd be some kind of payment flow. And if the account was barred, you'd get one of those error codes that was already discussed in the document about the account action being needed.
Quick question on that, on the booking for others. On that example where you had little Jane and she was going to go off and do whatever it was that she was going to go and do, judo, there you go. Because you were going to be booking on behalf of Janie, and it knows that you are you, and then you're booking on behalf of little Janie. As far as the account lookups and checking on the account being valid and not blocked and everything, how would we determine which account needs to be checked for doing the blocking? Is it the person we're booking, or is it the person making the booking?
Good question. So the attendee, well, it might well be that if the person making the booking is blocked, then everything gets blocked. Don't know. But certainly the attendee is where that ID is. Tim, if you go to whatever where were we? F2, I think. F2, F3, F3 with the attendee.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, so scrolling down a little bit there. There we are. So the attendee is being specified for each order item with that account ID.
Okay, so it would be expected that both the person making the booking and the person actually being booked into the activity, both of them potentially have checks performed against them to make sure they've not been banned or anything, or outstanding sales. So if one or the other, it would you would expect it to automatically turn around and say no go. Or is that
That's
going to
what-
come down to a seller's choice, or I'm just wondering
Yeah, I don't.
how that
well,
would go,
Yes,
or how it would be expected more than anything.
I guess the rules are probably, as you say, seller based. Whether the decision of the seller is to when bans are implemented. So I guess, but assuming there's an outstanding action on the account for a booker, it's a really good point, Phil. What we've missed in the error cases is the equivalent error for the customer having an outstanding action, because the error cases, as described, only cover the attendee. So I'll add an extra, we can add an extra error case to F4 that just ensures that it's clear that the outstanding action on customer account error can occur also as a response. Because when you have a response, when there's an error for the customer, you don't get any item errors. The whole thing blows up. Like, you can't use this customer. It doesn't matter what you're trying to book. Don't even bother. However, if you can use the customer and it's just an attendee issue, then that attendee item has an error, but the other attendees that might be successful won't have errors. So the customer can see which attendee it is that may be the problem, and remove that one and complete the booking with the others if they're trying to get a big party together.
Okay.
So can add that in. Does that answer? Would that answer the question?
At this point, I think so. It's just more of if there was a case already been considered for that sort of scenario.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense to me that that an outstanding action may restrict booking. But I suspect this is probably one of those areas in the spec we should have as a kind of a may or a should. Well, not even a should, a may, based on the business logic, because it might be that although an outstanding action is defined as preventing the attendee booking, if the customer is going to make a booking for someone else, maybe they can still do it. I don't know if that needs to be.
I don't know the answer at the moment. That's why I just thought I'd throw that one in there.
Yeah, good point. I don't know if.
As far as the Gladstone software will go, if you were logging in as a customer and trying to book for somebody else, if I've not got it turned on, if that scenario existed, it would stop booking, wouldn't it?
You mean on the link member booking stuff in Connect?
Yeah.
It's a very good question. I don't know the answer. I'll have to check that.
Okay.
Now that you've said it, I'll check it.
Yeah,
and I'll get back to
we've
you on
not
that.
got it turned on yet, so I can't.
No.
Not sure, but yeah.
Yeah. I'll go away and have a quick mooch around. I wasn't until then that I just thought of this scenario, especially the fact that we're not always talking linked members as far as Gladstone's terminology is concerned as well.
Sure. Okay.
I suppose if we keep it as a may, so I guess from Debbie, your perspective, it would be a business decision on your side whether to block in that scenario, and I guess the seller the customer would get informed of that when they try and make the booking. Is that sufficient from your perspective? We don't need to kind of try and come up with a standard whether it is or isn't.
No, I just didn't know. I was asking for that question because it made it easier, I guess, if we were trying to follow what we've already got.
Follow the logic, yeah.
Yeah. But in theory, the debt is, if it is a debt anyway, is relative to the individual, not necessarily to the group, isn't it? So I think you'd possibly still allow booking for another person.
Yeah, I didn't know whether maybe given a scenario that someone had abused the booking system, you wanted to stop them being able to book full stop.
But then we'd have to put blocks on each person's account, wouldn't we? If so they could exist, I guess, there could be a guest rather than an actual.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's just all of
Yeah.
those multiple possibilities was just suddenly popped into my head, so I thought I'd throw them in there just to confuse matters more.
Well, that is sort of the purpose of the call, but
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I can just add an extra section to say it's a may, and then every booking system can distinguish that.
Okay, so I'm tempted to say that our example flow is complete. I think walking through the API calls has been quite useful to really get down to the nitty-gritty, and it hasn't turned up anything, any landmines. So that's a bonus. So I think the question is to Matt and the various Gladstone people on the call. What is there in terms of this document or in terms of the specification that would prevent you from implementing at this point? Are there blockers that you see in terms of how this is presented, or other barriers that might be present?
To be honest, I haven't had a good look at this document for a good few months because I've been off doing other things. So I'm not sure I can say anything specific at the month without having a good read of it.
Okay. Yeah, no, there's obviously bits crossed out and bits that need adding and some reorganization and so on, and maybe make the color coding slightly clearer on the wireframe as a concession to the less observant among us. Is that the next step for a final review? Just get the document a bit tidied up, and we can sign and seal it in the near future.
Is it the proposal that this document basically is what we will be coding to, or is it that this document will then be converted into a much more formal spec that is then coded to?
It will have to be converted to a more formal specification for sort of administrative and official purposes. And I think there's also an additional guidance document that needs to be produced, both elucidating some of the points in this document and also in terms of specifying the kinds of things that need to be agreed out of band in order for this process to work. However, whether that kind of official W3C format is the most practical to implement against is a different question, which is why I was thinking of this document as being where people might start from, rather than the official spec.
Yeah, I mean, certainly as we found when going through the open booking implementation, it's difficult to interpret direct from the spec. You know, to come to the spec and read it and go, okay, I know exactly what I need to do now, is hard. So a guidance document is certainly much better at that. And you're right, this can mutate into that. Obviously, I don't think there's going to be any huge changes to what's in here now. My thinking is, I'm not touching it until there's a spec, because otherwise I start writing it and you guys go and change it. Obviously, I don't think there's a danger of that. So if your question is, would you be happy to go and start writing code? And the answer is, yeah, I guess so. The automated test suite was invaluable when creating the open booking API. So it'd be lovely if the same were to exist here, but I appreciate that's a huge load of work. So unlikely to be available when we start looking to actually implement stuff. But it was, like I say, it was invaluable. Saved a lot of time.
Okay, so the actions in your view would be tidy up this document, get some guidance for more hands-on, or so I suppose almost tutorial style of implementation, and then the test suite.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the test suite and the guidance almost go hand in hand, because the test suite goes hand in hand with the example application, and so therefore it's easy to see, okay, well, this is supposed to be doing that, and I can see what they did there, so I know what we need to do here. But again, I appreciate that that's a lot of work if we're saying, you know, you've got to have done that before we'll even get started, I don't think that's fair to say or sensible to expect.
Okay, I mean, that's useful feedback. Yeah, tooling in my head is a slightly different question from specification, but yeah, if as you say, it did prove incredibly useful for implementers last time, so it makes sense to provide that here as well. That being said, then I'm tempted to close the membership conversation for the moment, and then circulate the completed document for review. Before stopping the call, though, is there any other business for anybody?
Not at this stage. I think there may be some questions coming out of that document when we start reviewing it in its final format, but other than that, that's good.
Okay.
Just that's great. That's great to know. And I guess a question from the that was Simon just spoke, was it Simon? It was brilliant. I guess a question maybe to Andrew. I'm not sure from Gladstone's perspective. I know we've got an imminent decision to make about if this is a good enough level of detail to be tied down to crack on with building things for these 3 Ys. Does this give us what we need for that, do you think, where we are now?
I think we've got a session tomorrow, haven't we?
Yeah.
Just to go over the last pieces, and I think on the back of that, then we should then be hopefully in a position that we can then, alongside everyone active, just agree to that and then start the process. As we said before, we kind of want to get this started as well.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Yeah, that is great news. Okay, that sounds wonderful.
Okay, fantastic. I think I guess the only question then is, once this document's ready for circulation, and it sounds like people are ready to go, how people submit feedback regarding the spec.
So is the idea that we create the formal spec, or is it getting this document into a place?
I think it's about getting this document to a good place and getting the guidance written as best we can in the limited time available. I'm not so worried about getting it into respec, the W3C format, for the purposes of this call, although obviously that does have to happen, you know, in the near future. I don't think that's the #1 priority.
So in that case, if it's just this document, then is it just comments on the Google Doc itself that are a good place to have those issues raised? Or I suppose the alternative is formalizing them in GitHub, which we do, I suppose, if it was in respec, but it might be easier on the doc. Just do it there.
I mean, my personal preference would be indeed on the doc, but how do other people on the call feel about that?
I'm quite happy to leave feedback on the doc.
Is there a way on the doc that you can, I don't know if you can subscribe to a change history, rather than having to keep reading it and looking for a new thing, or whether there is some form of notification mechanism? I've never used it, so I don't use Google Docs.
I think it does email you if there's comments on the doc, if you're in the shared group.
Okay.
So it might be, or if you've ever made a comment yourself, so it might be just a case of adding everybody to the actual Google Doc as a specific.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should probably create a new document. I mean, copy this and then revise and then add everybody to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good historical to see where all the comments were, and then
yeah. I think it's good to preserve that, but let's simplify a little bit.
Take the snapshot now and then go for it. Yeah.
Okay, well, if people are happy for a Google Doc, then I will, get that document copied over, add you to it. In terms of scheduling, Nick, you're off next week, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be vital to that rewrite. So I would suspect it would be sometime after the, let's see, would it be fair to say by the 11th of February? Would that be sensible?
As in the rewrite of.
Yeah, yeah.
Where are we now? Hang on. 11th of February. Yeah. That's good. We can definitely shoot for that. Yeah, and that's the and the idea is then we circulate at that point, and then are we thinking that we give everyone a period of review, or a couple of weeks, or a week, or something?
Yeah, I think let's just say 2 weeks. I think it's hard for people to prioritize document review a lot of the time if you're a coder.
Yeah.
If we could say until the 25th. Quick mental maths there.
Yeah. So yeah, that sounds great. Good mental maths. He says, looking at his calendar with the number 25 written on it. Just so I'm totally clear then, but still though, from example for Gladstone's perspective, you know, cracking on, and then this kind of final review being done as a parallel activity is fine. It's not, this isn't on the critical path now. We don't feel.
Because I think we were going to crack on at least initially with the guest. So this being the member side of it, and the member creation and subsequent bookings. I think we're all right.
Okay, so this isn't a blocker.
Good to know. Amazing.
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry. I have one other very quick question, because I haven't been party to a lot of the previous calls. Are the recordings available anywhere?
They are. There's a bit of a backlog that I need to upload, but in principle, they're all available. So that'll be my immediate action, is get those up by the 4th, I guess. And I'll get those up and share those links with everybody on the call.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So we should have on the 11th all the calls available for reference, and the document in a state to review.
Tidy doc.
Yeah, I want to get the calls up first so that people like Phil have a chance to get caught up before they're confronted with this. It must now be hitting 50 pages or something. So
yeah, it's at least.
Yeah,
good though. That's what we want.
There goes a day and a half of my life. Yeah. Watching recordings and reading documents. So there you go.
Yeah, sorry, didn't do much to jazz up the recordings, I'm afraid. Maybe add some background music or something.
I'm looking forward to all the hand-drawn diagrams. So there you go.
Yeah, I got to say, Nick, you're amazing at the quick Google Draw diagram. It's a difficult medium, but
I think I might real well regret that one video with those blobs on for a while longer. So I'm not sure that was the highlight for me. Luckily, there's a redeeming call immediately afterwards. So hopefully, that's where it comes together.
Yeah, it is astonishing, because I do think a month ago, or actually a little under, I think there was we had one call that ended with a sort of like, this will never work. And then 2 weeks later, everything was on track. So and that's down to you, Nick. So thank you very much for that. Thank you to everyone for surfacing all the problems, but thank you especially to Nick for solving them. So
good team effort. Welcome.
Okay, and with that, I will give everybody 15 minutes for their other urgent tasks, no doubt awaiting their attention. Okay, thank you very much all.
Thank you all. Thanks all. Bye now.
Thanks, bye now.
Bye.